And so we are actually starting just a little bit early. So everybody knows, just in case anyone starts rolling in the room, it looks like we were live as of 10 seconds ago.
All right.
So we're going to go ahead and set the space, kind of summon some beings, some of the multidimensional beings, some of the members of the multidimensional tribe that are going to be attending Camp Disclosure this weekend out in North Carolina. So we're just going to pause for a moment here and kind of focus everything. I'm going to skip over to Facebook here before we get started. It seems as every time I start a live stream on Facebook, they immediately turn it to private. There they go. They did it once again. Or whatever that little, no, for real, whatever that little algorithm is. I don't know. Maybe that's a setting. We have no idea. But
Wow.
I know it's strange. It's happened with every live stream I do. I have to manually switch it over. And so looks like, okay, cool, we got it. We are live on Facebook. Hopefully we can get some strange beings in the room. We are also on YouTube in the moment. So for those few of you that have heard the call, that heard that strange multidimensional frequency spreading through your homes and your mobile devices and your laptops, and especially through that cosmic web that we are all linked to, if you have heard the call, thank you for being here. Hello, Mr. John Hoffman. Hello, Camp Disclosure. And so, yeah, thank you for gathering together here today, you guys. I don't know what's going on. Maybe I'm losing my mind. I probably am. But this is the third day in a row that we've done a live stream. And who knows, there might even be more in the coming days. I've got no idea. But let us know where you're at, how you're doing. I see some people on YouTube here. Facebook usually suppresses us. But this is a very strange little accidental show that I've been doing called Strange Communications in the Digital Realm. And today we have one of the members of the multidimensional soul group who I believe has been, kind of walking the path of ascension and going through his own cycles of activation and growth and probably traumas and self-realizations and all kinds of epiphanies. We have Mr. Simon Esler. For those of you guys that don't know, Simon has a really cool show on Edge of Wonder. I believe it's called Worlds Within, right? Did I just say the name of your show?
You did. You
Okay,
did.
good. I'm really, really bad with names lately. So I had this weird fear that I would name someone else's show suddenly and you'd be like, oh, uh, actually, no, Matthew, that's actually not my show. Think that's, so-and-so's. But so what we're going to be doing here today with Mr. Simon Esler is just kind of talking about some random weird stuff, things that are going on in our own internal realms. And I want to start out by saying, if you are watching this on Facebook, please enter our drawing. Somebody's going to win a pass, a live stream ticket to Camp Disclosure. You guys, it's a very, very important event that Simon and I are going to be a part of this coming next weekend, August 27th through the 31st. And so if you're watching us on Facebook and you would like to, possibly win a live stream ticket to that, all you got to do is share this video, but just be sure that you share it with your settings on public. Otherwise, I won't even know that you did. It'll tell me that they shared, and I won't even see who it is. And so we're going to be giving away a live stream ticket. But that said, we're going to get down to business. One of the things that I've been noticing over the past year or so since the last time Simon and I had an actual face-to-face conversation was that we've been sort of walking a very similar and synchronistic path in terms of the activations, in terms of the dissemination of the type of knowledge or the teachings or the understandings that we've accumulated over this strange physical lifetime. And it's funny, it turns out we actually had a conversation this time last year in which we sort of both kind of like remarked about how it seems like we were in some sort of a school or like a lineage, or I actually had very, very distinct memories of, I guess we could say, timelines or past lives in which, myself and many members of this group that we're in right now are actually involved in teachings or sort of classes. And so Simon has definitely been one of those people. But so here we are once again in 2020, and we're moving into one of the most potent energetic windows that we have ever been in terms of our just our psychic, intuitive, energetic, activations. And Simon, thank you for joining us. I want to go ahead and let you, talk. How are you doing? What's happening in your world? What's been going on in this past year? Whatever you feel is relevant. Go for it.
Well, it's been a big year for deeper levels of spiritual discernment for me, of really finding the bullshit, finding the areas where I may have been giving away my intuition to a spiritual authority, or to the idea of spiritual authority, and going back over my life and realizing the places where, I preferred to give up my sovereignty and allow someone to tell me what was going on, instead of really looking deeply into myself to truly find what was happening. So for me, there's this big theme of throwing all that away and going really, really much more deeply into myself, and trusting those quiet, very, very quiet messages that have been coming through all along. And to go through that it's been a lot of darkness. It's been a lot of darkness and pain, but now I'm emerging from it at this time in a way that is providing a great deal of vision for what I really want to do. I had some vision already, and this is really, it's been revealing because it showed me areas that I wasn't clearly visualizing enough. Been very telling. So, I've been putting in some simple forms of ritual, just like connecting more to planting seeds during the new moon, and then, seeing how it comes around in the full moon, and just using some of those basic rhythms. So, it's been a very challenging but very rewarding year, and it really feels like all of this work is going to be culminating at Camp Disclosure. It truly feels that way for me.
I agree. It sort of is. I have noticed a very, very strange thing, and for those of you guys that are watching, I'm going to instantly jump into like the deepest end of the pool. I have a really weird theory, Simon. I believe that over the course of the past year, that many of us on the Earth plane, especially within this strange little multidimensional soul group, have actually been switching timelines or even physical bodies. That we have been transporting our consciousness, whether knowingly or unknowingly, through many, many different versions of ourselves. And I believe that on some level, one of the reasons why a lot of us didn't see this very strange little dark spot with this, thing we call COVID that appeared earlier this year, that put us all into this strange sort of bubble, a strange little time bubble of our own. It seems that many of us did not see that coming for the express purpose, because it was meant to challenge some version of ourselves. It was meant to take us through a rebirthing process. And even if you don't subscribe to the idea that you physically shifted bodies, because I actually physically changed bodies just a week ago. Yes, that's a weird thing to throw in there, but it's literally true. Even if you're not physically changing bodies, a lot of us are energetically or emotionally, we're shedding old versions of ourselves. And so have you experienced anything like that? Have you noticed this sort of like ego death, or this sort of transformation of the version of Simon that was here maybe in like January, right? When everyone was like, here we go, guys, it's 2020. We got this 2020 view. Let's get in there. And all of a sudden the world came in and they were all, and everybody had to reevaluate everything. How has that been for you? How is that rebirthing process?
It's been so literally about heart awareness on like a multidimensional and deeply anatomical level. So if I tracked it just through the anatomical experience, I feel the pulse of my heart and the pulse of my blood flow very strongly most of the day now. I'm like so much deeper into my body that I'm just like watching my blood pulse a lot of the day. And like, this is like a normal check-in for me. And one of the experiences I had was during meditation. I was doing a heart-based practice, and I realized that all this time, the heart-based practice I've been doing has just been focused on the feeling of my heart's pulse. But what actually happened, hello cat, what actually happened was I felt myself descend into the chambers of my heart for the first time. I felt like a sort of remote viewing kind of experience where I really felt my awareness drop in, as if prior to this experience there was really some kind of like psychic wall, or some repressed trauma or something that had truly been stopping me from just going into the sensation of the inside of my heart. And so that's been a big part of this for me, dropping more deeply into the physical heart, feeling the heart pump, feeling the blood pump, and I guess bringing higher consciousness to those physical rhythms on a regular basis.
Interesting. It sounds like and I don't know why, for some reason I always want to like explain something in my own mind, but it sounds to me very much like you've experienced a deeper level of physical embodiment, or the seeding of the soul, like deeper into the physical. Like, there you go, ensoulment. Absolutely. I have a weird theory about that. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe not. But it's the concept of J seals, or what I believe to be standardized energetic or genetic blockages. Some people will call them implants, that will exist in key areas of the human body. I believe that nearly everyone on the earth plane that was born in a physical body will have energy in these places to some extent, but not each and every one of us will experience some form of blockage or difficulty there. But it does seem to me there is a widely acknowledged energy blockage. Some people will call it a J seal, just to the left of the heart itself. Oftentimes seated, within the heart chakra, within the energetic field of the heart chakra, that others will believe have to do with this expansion of, number one, the fourth strand of DNA, but number two, the elements or the seeding of that green ray energy. Other people call it the Christ consciousness. I believe it's part of the process of fourth density activation, but it sounds very much like you've been experiencing your own version of that. Have you heard of any of that stuff? Like, what does that sound like to you? Have you seen a version of those similar blockages or those things in your own realm?
Yes, specifically something along the left side of the heart has been a recurring sensation, actually. And this reminds me that you and I also had matching heart sensations last year at Dimensions of Disclosure, because I described like a tingling at the back of my heart chakra going out into my spine that had been going on for months and months. And I remember you said you were having the exact same thing. So it's interesting that last year it was really the back of the chakra that was being, I guess, activated and worked it with. And now what I feel, I don't know if this is what you're describing, but it's closer to the front of my body, and it's very much on the left side of the heart. And it sort of has felt like, I guess, kind of like a wound was there, or like a weapon was being removed from a wound, or something like something along those lines. And I even felt it from other people, like I felt someone who was very deeply in that. I felt like the stabbing pain of their heart, and noticed the difference between that specific sensation in their body versus what my body's going through. So I've had some specific experiences in that area.
Wow. And that's really, really good to hear. Once again, that backs up that, at least from our perceptual viewpoint, this is a real energy blockage. And so to make it a little bit weirder, some people will even believe that that has a distinct effect over the cell death technology that is implanted within the human body that says you will die after 80 something years, those sort of pre-planned sort of cell die-off processes that will go on. It is, or rather, it has been observed within the human energy system that upon the removal of, the energy blockage from there in the heart and also at the top of the head, it creates this really interesting expanded flow. And what I'm seeing is that people are like, our bodies are changing, our faces are changing, elements of us are beginning to become more fully seated into the body. And not to go on a weird log rant about it, but I don't know, it seems like you're having the same experience.
Totally. And it's bringing forward like very specific ancestral genetics, like pushing some forward, receding others. I've definitely had experiences like that. So it seems like there's an epigenetic sort of wave going on with this as well.
I agree, there is. And I noticed that one of the focuses of one of the episodes I saw of yours recently on Worlds Within, you did talked about like the sort of internal viewing process, and I might have it wrong, so forgive me if I'm totally distorting it, but the process of turning our gaze within and sort of looking inward into the body, or rather that's what I was gathering from that in the moment. I believe that for each of us, or rather at this stage of the game, as we're going into fourth density here, each of us is experiencing that sort of inward sort of focusing, or that expanded internal visual, whatever it is, in our own way. I was wondering if you can just talk about like your understandings of that, or those processes, or like kind of whatever you were working with at that stage when you were doing research on that. Hopefully that question makes sense.
Absolutely. So some of the major resources I've been using to study and present material on looking inwards has been rooted in ancient Taoism. And one of the major resources is this ancient text called The Secret of the Golden Flower. And in this, they teach practitioners, they teach students like how to reverse their eyes and their ears. And so the eyes is one of the first stages. And there's also like a modern teacher who's teaching things like this. His name's Lujan Mattis, and he teaches these things in a book called Whisperings of the Dragon. So the idea is that in this world, we're socially engineered to give too much of our visual capacity into the external world. So as you grow up, things like TV, they literally pulls your awareness away from your body and into the world. When we are meant naturally to have a huge portion of our visual capacity inward facing. And the reason this is important is because our eyes don't just have the ability to see, our eyes have the ability to feel. And this is something that we all do normally, but we don't notice that we're doing it. So when you look somewhere in your body, like you're studying a sensation of your body, let's say like the heart sensation we were talking about earlier, what people don't realize is that the reason you're able to look inward to that area and play around with those sensations is actually your eyes. That's your inward facing vision going to that area of the body and looking. But what's important to understand is that it's kind of like synesthesia, you know, so that your eyes can sense feeling and relay that feeling to you. And so this is taught within these ancient and modern sort of Taoist teachings. And it's sort of like, you know, Victor Schauberger, a lot of people know his work. He did like the vortex research, right? He was all about implosion technologies. And he talked about how all the technologies we use on Earth today are explosion technologies, and it's fundamentally against nature. And that actually the natural flow is implosion, is inward. So in the same way that ufology is pushing to have implosion-based technologies being released to humanity, we are also becoming more implosive beings. More of our awareness is actually going inwards. And so this is the correction of a lot of the social engineering that has externalized our awareness too much. And so, you know, if you look at the teachings of Lujan Mattis, he says you want 98% of your visual capacity inward at all times, and only 2% lightly touching the world and looking around. So this is like how drastic the shift is. This is how much of our awareness has been migrated into the world around us. And so consequently, that's how much of it needs to go inwards. And this is also the journey of ensoulment, of awareness going inwards, and that implosion creating like enlightenment experiences, if that makes sense. So that happens with the eyes as well as the ears.
I agree. I haven't heard of like the 98 to 2 like percent ratio, but I absolutely agree that I believe the primary focus at this stage for me in terms of understanding the outward world and the chaos and the madness and, you know, all that stuff has been almost entirely through finding and seeking and understanding and healing and sort of becoming aware, I guess we could say, of that within myself. I feel like that's what kind of we were sort of forced into over all these months in whatever corner of the world we were in during this strange process. I also feel like that's why a lot of us are kind of really poised to kind of offer and project some new, expanded, activated, more conscious version of ourselves based on what we've learned, based upon our wounds, based upon all the information and the experiences that we've gathered. And I believe that this is a very timed event. I think it's meant to take place right now in August, going into September, heading into October of 2020, because, and I don't know if you've heard of this, I'm going to branch off into some weird random thing, but I believe there is very much a sort of timeline correction process that is taking place on the earth plane right now, in which probably individuals like yourself and me and many others, probably a lot of the people that are watching this right now, is that we chose to come together at stages exactly like this for very important activations, very important realizations, pieces of ourselves. We're all going to come together at the same time. And it's very interesting to me that you're talking about, you know, viewing and finding your own internal sense or whatever that specific frequency is for you, because that's been a really big focus of the classes that we've been doing lately. For me, it's been very much about activating the multidimensional, or what I call the causal chakras at the sides of the head, and also the additional kind of what I call like etheric infrastructure around the sides of the body. I believe that when we do that, it actually allows us to make even greater use of that internalized sense that comes upon gazing within. And so I believe that we're in a little bit of like this timeline, like correction process right now, in which each and every person is emerging as a new version of themselves. And I think for you, hopefully this question, or rather, let me kind of rewind. Hopefully this question will make sense, because I realize we're going on a long winding road here. But as a spiritual teacher, as an activist, as a person that's activating in your own way and like bringing your own knowledge out to the world, what do you think people need to know right now about, you know, where they're going and how to feel their energy, about how to know what's real, about timelines, or, you know, whatever comes up for you?
Subtlety. I think really, to me, my experience is that this is so much about subtlety, that at this point in humanity's evolution, subtlety is like a direction. There's so little that we've been entrained to experience and focus upon that is truly subtle. And we have not been given the education to move into subtlety as a state of being and to apply very, very subtle forms of awareness. And this, when you learn to do this, this opens up a whole world of information that has been awaiting us. And at the same time, there are sort of subtle channels all around us that have been ripe for manipulation because we haven't been aware of them. So not only do I feel that people really need to continue the dive inwards, continue to bring your awareness inwards, not just in meditation, in your interactions in the day, in your activism, in your content creation, that we really need to maintain inner awareness at all times. This is metaphysical activism. This is, you know, the idea of that inner maintenance constantly. So I think like we need to practice forms of awareness, forms of communication that are very, very subtle and very refined, because this is part of our birthright that has been purposefully kept from us. So when I apply that personally, what I'm noticing is that the parts of the matrix that I've been entrained not to see begin to reveal themselves. So it's almost like refining subtle awareness starts to show us the things that the design of this construct, you know, intended us not to experience or become aware of. So subtle awareness is like very important tactically right now, because you have all these aspects of the construct that require subtlety to become covert. And if we become subtle, they lose that covert nature and we gain more awareness and more free will.
I like that, especially the increased focus on subtlety. And thank you for salvaging that question, which wasn't even a question. Like if somebody out there is actually watching, they would know I was like, okay, change the subject in the middle of the question. Like, okay, we're not going to mention that. Throw that part out. So thank you. You totally salvaged that and took it in a really good direction. I'm going to kind of change the subject a little bit, because especially kind of, or, you know, when we talk about subtlety, this will also be relevant, but in the realm of disclosure, that sort of thing that's become a little bit of a product or an industry at this point, I'll just say it, in the industry of disclosure, there's been a lot of changes in the past few years since you and I kind of rolled in here. And it's not like we're like, you know, been here forever, you know what I mean? But over the past 4 or 5 years, we've been kind of watching and sitting there, and I've been seeing you there as well. And there's been a lot of changes, a lot of realignments, a lot of restructuring. Some people fell off the pedestal. Others are barely hanging on. And we're coming to this stage right now in which factions or weird lines are being drawn in this really interesting and fascinating way. There's this incredible thing that I believe is part of an offshoot of the mind virus, which we're going to get into in a minute, but I call it a polarity trigger or a polarity program, and it's sort of this thing that's being downloaded into our bodies through our phones and, you know, like our computers, that's actually causing us to become deeply polarized or entrenched within certain belief structures. And it doesn't matter what industry or what area of your life it's in right now, because many of us within the soul group are focused on disclosure. It's there, and we're seeing it and we're feeling it, and people are aligning with this side or that side. And some people are even talking about, you know, some partial disclosure timeline or something that's about to be, you know, doled out to us. What's your thoughts on this? What do you see it? How are you feeling about this whole charade at this point?
I think that all the areas where people were improperly applying belief are being revealed. So, how can I explain this clearly? I really think that in the realm of disclosure, you know, when you're dealing with figureheads and witness testimony and really fantastic information, that belief is not really an effective tool. It kind of degrades what's going on within you in relation to the information you're dealing with. Because if there is belief, then because you are a dualistic being, because polarity sort of exists within you, then anytime you have belief, that means somewhere within you there's also disbelief. And you have to like maintain the belief against the disbelief that's within you. And I think people have been applying that greatly to a lot of this information instead of their own discernment, and instead of lining up the information with the resonance of their own path. So the main thing that we all know for sure is that we're each individually experiencing an ascension. Everyone in this community has had bold, physical, overt experiences and personal transformations that make the arc of that story very, very apparent. So this is like that's your foundation. And from that, you start to learn from other people's experiences and other people's information. But if it's not coming from a foundation of trusting your own path and the transformation you've gone through so far, then down the line, you know, you become very easy to manipulate in terms of the polarization that you're talking about. And I think that's part of what's going on. So if someone was invested in a certain body of information, but only through belief, then they can easily be repolarized into disbelief because it wasn't connected to their trust in their own path, in their own transformation. Whereas people who arrive upon a body of information and they sort of energetically they overlay it on the vibration of their path and their transformation, they find resonance and they proceed and it honors their path. This is very different. That's not the same thing. So I think there's like a weeding out going on where it's like, even if a body of information has truth to it, if you were attached to it through belief, then there's a good chance that, you know, you might be polarized into disbelief so that you get your alignment straight and come back to your path.
I feel you. I feel you. I'm going to take it one step further. Have your ideas and your beliefs about what disclosure is or what it means, have they changed since you came into this scene or in this realm? And if they have, how?
Drastically. Like, first of all, it's just so much more messy and human and kind of gnarly than I think any of us expected it to be. Like, you know,
Way,
really.
way dirtier than we ever knew. Right?
But it is because, like, you know, a big core of this whole ascension, awakening, transition is just purely human relationships. Like, I know we love to focus a lot on the information and truth via like very potent information, but if you do that, and if you do that in a way that sustains ignorance in terms of the human relationships that surround that information, then you're really not observing the whole truth, because there's always human relationships that are the conduits and the context of information that's coming out. And it seems like because people have been so fixated on nothing but the information, and that they've ignored the ways, the messy ways that humans interrelate, then they've been kind of traumatized when a relationship falls apart publicly. Then, you know, the way they relate to the information suddenly changes, because they really weren't, understanding the importance of human relations. So I think that's a big beckoning right now. I think that's a lot of what's going on, where we need to have a deeper understanding of what it's like to have relationships founded on trust, on honor,
Mm.
on good communication, and how that's as important as an incredible disclosure of information. And I think we're being called to balance that out.
Yeah, I agree. And somebody down there says, River Speak says, hard to unify in polarization. I agree. It certainly is. It absolutely is, which kind of brings up this idea. Somebody's been talking about it. A bunch of us have been talking about it actually over the past couple of days, about the new moon in Leo and activation within the solar plexus chakra. And one of the things I've been noticing over the past couple of years is it seems to me there is a very distinct connection between the solar plexus chakra and the throat chakra. In fact, I believe you can almost entirely bypass the communicative or the energy flow coming up from the solar plexus all the way around the heart. And what we're finding is there's many people, I believe, in media, as influencers on social media, and also politicians that have been utterly and completely hijacked. They've become mouthpieces, or these voice boxes for what I also believe to be a sentient, predatory, ancient version of artificial intelligence that is representing itself here on the Earth plane. And so I believe we are in a very important activation window for understanding, number one, the frequency of truth, which for me, where a lot of that starts is in the solar plexus. And then two, projecting that out through the throat chakra. And I know, getting your message out there to the world has been one of the primary, missions you've had this year, as is my own. And so, once again, a very strange winding road toward the question, what do you think is going on in terms of, our ability to understand the frequency of truth and its relationship, with things like artificial intelligence or the parasitic construct, things like that, sort of the darker elements, because we see a lot of people right now. All you got to do is turn on CNN and you're going to see people with no soul literally broadcasting and spewing out information. What are your views on all that? What are you seeing?
I try to find like some area in myself that holds compassion when I see someone who is that overtaken, someone who has really lost their sovereignty on that level. Because, like I was saying earlier, part of my recent awakenings has been the areas where I gave up my power, specifically in the realm of spirituality, in the realm of spiritual awareness. And, that was very informative, because while I wasn't like playing out a super dark agenda, I realized that my lack of awareness and my immaturity in those areas, many years ago, I very easily could have been a conduit for a dark agenda. And I'm just fortunate that I wasn't, that wasn't on my path. But now I look at the intensity of these current conditions, and if someone has really lived a life of corruption and unconsciousness, then they are very easily going to become a conduit right now. If you have not exercised your free will and really engaged in some level of ensoulment, then your body is available to a much greater extent for mind control, for social engineering. And that's just like a hard, difficult fact about what's going on right now, And what was the other part of your question? I'm trying to remember.
Here, I'll just, it like wasn't even a question. It was just me ranting and trying to turn it into a question. But what do you think about the idea that there is an actual predatory, artificially intelligent frequency? I believe, let's just go one step further. I believe it has infected entire governments at this stage. What do you think about that concept? Does that mean anything?
Yeah. Okay. So this is something else that exists within these subtle realms. And I think there are subtle channels of communication that avail themselves to that kind of consciousness. I think that one of the best examples of this that people can look at it in their own lives is that little ping you get to go to your phone or your screen when it's meaningless to what you're doing, right? This is an area of consciousness where, like, that might not always be an AI influence, but that's an area of consciousness that is available to that kind of entity. Where if you're about to do something poignant that is a threat to that, then you could be pinged towards a screen. You know, that little Pavlovian trigger is in you for that application. So that's an area that people can measure themselves, where it's like, how often do I unconsciously migrate towards technology for no reason at all?
Yeah.
Right? And this is very new. We all have that, right?
I know,
So,
right?
so
I don't
that,
even want to admit it. I'm like, what?
no, it's
No, I
brutal.
don't. What? No, man, I don't. No, I don't.
Like when I don't have my phone and I just like pat my pocket for no reason. Ugh, gross. But so there's that aspect of it. But you know, I came across some research lately, and I'm going to be including some of this in my camp disclosure presentation. And it was about the way they were training AI to try to surpass human consciousness. Was in a lot of experiments through chess, right? They were really trying to see, can we get a better chess player out of AI than the best human chess players in the world? And it comes down to warfare. Basically, what they found was that the AI was very good tactically. That the AI's advantage is that it can calculate a billion different tactics and analyze how successful those tactics will be. But strategy is where AI fails and where humans thrive. And it's very interesting that strategy is very abstract, because it means like creating a hodgepodge understanding of like deeper structures and lower levels, and then making higher level decisions that you know are going to trickle down in abstract ways and cause like certain changes. And I guess when they were developing these AI programs, they couldn't get it to deal with strategy as effectively as humans, because humans can be so abstract with strategy. They can access this higher level of thinking so easily, and they're very fluid with it. So from these studies, they didn't end up getting the AI to a level of strategic understanding. What they actually did was they created AI and human teams where the tactical part of the chess game would be tasked out to the AI, but the strategic aspect would be managed by humans. And when they did that, they suddenly had like the ultimate chess game. It was like, bar none, they were like unbeatable.
Yeah.
So I like to think about that in terms of where we're going, right? Like, can we settle into our tactical intelligence as a collective, as communities, and become very tactically smart in comparison to an AI which deals with variables of tactics, and it just calculates that at incredible speeds.
Oh, I like that. The concept of tactical intelligence. It kind of synchronizes with this thing that I've been ranting on and on about, called the frequency of truth. And I guess what I believe to be our body's innate ability to sense and understand and gauge what is true, or what is real, or what is resonant, versus what is false or inorganic, or, you know, we could even say not of the light, if you want to put those kind of quotations on it. I believe that, you know, each of us is awakening some element of that skill right now. And yeah, thank you for mentioning that. I'm gonna kind of, we're gonna take the wheel and we're gonna turn it really, really hard to the right. And I'm just gonna throw this huge hook out there. What do you think about cloning? I have a theory. I'm just gonna say it. Some people are gonna get pissed at me. Don't get mad, you guys. I think that a huge amount of politicians, especially in the Democratic Party and also the Republican Party and all throughout world government, I believe that they're actually clones. I believe that they're intelligent copies of a previously existing or currently existing human that are being used by a very, very dark multinational cabal. I believe one of the most major players is China, I believe that they actually copied an AI project that Google was doing, and they actually are, attempting to create an AI that's going to inhabit or take over the bodies of these clones that have already been created. And so, what do you think about cloning? What do you think about what I just mentioned? Does any of that make sense? Is it possible?
Yeah, I've definitely done some dives on that, and I found some of the work of Og Teles
Yeah.
really opened my eyes to that, especially the celebrity cloning aspect. And I think, like, you know, I think this is one of the deeper, darker things that is going to take some real time to come out. Uh, there's a couple ways to look at it. Like, if we look at it from the perspective of how far along is sort of black budget, corporate, military, like deep projects, how far along are they always ahead of us?
Hmm.
So if you look back at, like, sort of Dolly the sheep and that whole charade of, like, this is where we're at in cloning. Okay, well, so you apply, even if you apply the 20-year leap forward or the 100-year leap forward, people talk about this in different ways. But either way, whatever public level of cloning was being presented, we were already ahead of that. So I think that's one way to understand that. Obviously, they've been very focused on cloning because this is a huge advantage. If they can clone people and they can transfer consciousness, why would they not do that? Because this is a major, major advantage. But the other angle to look at it from is really from a religious one, that we're dealing to a certain extent with devout Luciferians and devout transhumanists, which is really, there's a great intersection there, right? So they want, the Luciferian notion is to take materialism as far as possible, that the material realm should be inhabited as fully as possible, that it should be developed, and pleasure and technology should be pushed as far as possible. And this is a very obvious path for the transhumanist, for the Luciferian. So to me, it makes sense in terms of their religion and what we know they practice. So, I think there's a lot of interesting evidence of this going on with politicians, with celebrities, with, like, malfunctioning behaviors and very, very, very strange things like that going on. I don't know, the celebrity cloning, like, centers, that whole thing. I don't know, it frightens me in a deep way because I really feel like there's something going on there. It really, really bothers me so deeply because I think it's like a level of depravity that few people consider.
Oh yeah, it is the richest man's game.
Yeah.
I actually had an experience not too long ago, which hopefully will segue into the next question, or something I wanted to get your reaction on, because I think it's something that we're all about to experience. Not too long ago, I had what I believe to be an out of body experience, in which I was taken, I think, amongst a group of other people actually, and we were given a chance to view a demo, or a demonstration of what I believe to be a version of looking glass technology that is either being used by military groups or is about to be in use by military groups. And what this technology allows people to do is to interface with this, like, quantum computer thing that was hanging down. It was kind of like inverted in front of us. And what they would do is put these VR goggles on people, and it would allow you to view into the minds and through the eyes of people throughout this grid. And I don't know if that grid was the whole planet or just a select grid, but it allowed you to cycle through and actually create sort of like a director mode type of a thing. I believe what that is, or what it was an offshoot of a technological version of the social memory complex, kind of like this technological hive mind that they're going to be using AI to plug into. And whether or not the experience I had was real or not, maybe that was a projection of my consciousness, it seems that there are many other people starting to talk about this quantum connectivity or quantum technology, and the level to which our human consciousness is now able to move through these, almost networks of people, the sort of internet of things. And so I know you are also aware of the organic social memory complex, okay? And this is where my question comes in. Do you believe it's possible that they're creating a digitized version of that or a false version of that? And how do you feel about it? Could it even be real? What are your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, I think in terms of just like the polarity of this planet, that whatever positive manifestation of humanity's evolution we are seeking to promote and to nurture and cultivate, there is almost certainly an agenda to directly oppose that and to manifest a false version of that, or basically a version of that that can be controlled. Um, you know, you can look into research on how Rockefeller actually funded and helped develop the internet, because to them, the idea of people being connected around the world was ideal to dissolve national, identity and patriotism, and to really create like globally focused identities. But they also really wanted a network of machines that would do whatever they wanted. And this was like not just exciting for them, this was a turn on. This was like sexually exciting for them.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of a worldwide set of connected machines that would never say no to them. I've had some very weird visions and connections to this, that like when they realized they could do this, like there was so much strange sexual energy about it. It's very,
Yeah,
very odd and
very,
disturbing,
very
but
much so. I agree, actually.
right.
It's funny that you would even mention that.
I've never mentioned this ever.
No, dude, that is a trip, because yeah, this is a frequency and a real thing. And I'm sorry to cut you off there. Yeah, go ahead.
Please go. Well, no, go ahead. I'm interested. What did you have with that?
I believe that it's number one. I believe that there is very much a sort of technological frequency or an interface that will sort of influence or exacerbate certain emotional states or frequencies in the body. You actually kind of touched on it a few moments ago when you were talking about how our phones will influence us. And I'm sure you've probably heard the term biodigital social programming. And just the level to which the phones that we've created are now actually programming and monitoring and changing and, even altering our thought patterns. And at the risk of going on a really, really long rant, I believe that we are coming to a really, really huge jumping off point in the next couple months with respect to that digitized social memory complex, like the Elon Musk version, or the organic ascension process and the organic creation of those abilities inside us. And so how do you feel about that? And through your own work, how can we strengthen and continue to bring forth that organic ascension? And I know that was a very long and winding road to get there, so take whatever you can from that. But yeah.
Well, it brings me back to subtlety, right? The personal distinction between those timelines is subtle, is extremely subtle. That our awareness needs to be entrained into deeper layers of subtlety, because of challenges like that we're going to hit forks in the road where you need to be able to discern between, two paths that are like microns apart, and yet have completely different destinations, have polar opposite destinations. So if we can, firstly, as individuals, learn to develop very, very subtle forms of awareness, we're going to awaken levels of our intuition that are very important right now. There's certain information that only arrives into your field in subtle form. It will never come a different way. And so as long as we're living without that, then there's literally like libraries of information just bypassing us. It's so much information. And we've been entrained to be so focused on the physical material world and to be pulled into screens and technology that it initially seems counterintuitive, I think, for a lot of people to go inwards to the degree that I'm talking about. But I'll give one example of something that's been very helpful for me. I've really gotten much more deeply into essential oils lately, because I'm really finding this is cutting through those AI frequencies. It's cutting through all this technological bullshit. And so I'm literally like regularly using essential oils. As I use technology, I'm using this to come back to the body. I even, it's funny. I'll talk about this actually. So I made a specific blend of oils because
Nice.
I wanted like layers of frequencies that I wanted to infuse into the offerings that I'm creating for Camp Disclosure. So every time I work on Camp Disclosure, I get like a set of oils that I actually inhale. I use that aromatherapy to find those frequencies, and then I like move into the work. And so I'm finding that even within like a very chaotic realm of technology, like sometimes I work and I'm surrounded by so many devices just because of the nature of the work that I do, that can cut right through it. And so I'm not saying that's the only tool, but I think we can all start finding tools like that that bring us back to the organic experience. The sense of smell is very strong. I do think it has a particular capacity to cut through a lot of programming, you know. But yeah, I guess those are my thoughts on it. That's it.
No, dude, that makes total sense. That's your clairalience activating. That's one of the primary fourth density skills that are showing up right now for each of us. Everyone is going to have their own version of it. Some of us are going visual, some of us are going, sensory based. Each of us will have these predetermined and timed sort of abilities or elements of your own senses that are going to activate. I would even be willing to bet that sort of sense that you're awakening with the essential oils is going to assist you in reading other people's energy, all the way down to the extent that I'll bet you, man, you're going to be walking past someone's house or even someone's car, and just based on the olfactory sensations you're going to get all this information about them. I don't know, maybe you're already having that. Have you
I
had
was
that
talking
experience?
Yeah, I was talking to Amanda about this the other day because the reason I've been big into the essential oils is because she's really started to work in this field. And so I've had access to this like a plethora of really crazy oils that I've never even heard of. And it does seem to be the case that working with essential oils and very like purified substances like this, they amplify that sense. And I think that's in the same way you could make a similar argument for very pure visual experiences. If I used to perform meditations on the cosmic egg. I don't know if you ever had any experiences like that. So
I
there,
don't think so. I've
it's
heard of the
very
Vernex
interesting.
egg. I don't know about the cosmic egg, but yeah, go ahead.
There's whole religions basically focused around the cosmic egg. And people will literally just meditate on videos and pictures of what is essentially a cosmic egg, is the cosmos being birthed out of an actual egg made of light. And people have
Yeah.
had this vision. It's interesting. When I did this work years ago, I really did have a very visceral experience of the cosmic egg. My point is that, that is perhaps a visual sample of something very pure and sort of rarefied, like the essential oils. And then, of course, with the listening capacity, you can listen to different frequencies, and there's brain waves, and there's toning, and so we need to find the very pure sensory forms of input that help bring us back to that organic experience, that organic timeline. And, sometimes for me, that is just sitting and playing my singing bowl and coming back to those organic frequencies. So like we have anchors, we have ways of coming back to that, of correcting the timeline, of reminding our body which frequencies we want to remain anchored in, so that even though we're surrounded by all these alternate frequencies and all these artificial influences, it can be very basic. The rituals can be very, very practical, very simple.
Yeah, I feel you. I totally agree. And thank you for like navigating the weird angular winding road of my non-questions. You did know, seriously, like you did a really you even brought it all the way back to the very, very like initial point that we were both trying to make. So thank you for that, like the subtlety and the further physical embodiment. I know we've been sitting here rambling on and on for a while. And for all of you guys that are watching, thank you. Please do share this video if you're on Facebook. If you would like to win a live stream pass to Camp Disclosure coming up next weekend, it's only in a few days, I guess, right? That's crazy.
Yeah.
The timeline is approaching. So please share this video with your share settings public so that I can count your entry, and I'll be contacting somebody in the coming days for that. That said, Simon, what are you going to be doing at Camp Disclosure this year? What are you offering? What are you bringing to this strange group of hybrid beings?
Okay, well, what I'm really getting into, it's deeply related to a lot of what I was speaking to this evening in terms of subtlety, in terms of subtle awareness, both inner awareness and outer awareness. And it's really the idea of the birth of free will on Earth. That I believe, and I have experienced that free will is coming sort of back. We're regaining control over it. So it has been usurped. Our own free will has been sort of turned against us because of our lack of maturity and awareness. But that the return of free will is through these subtle channels. And that this is one of the spaces within this realm where we have the greatest degree of free will. That when you move into subtle awareness, when you move into subtle realms, there's an expansion of free will that occurs. So I'm going to be diving really deeply into that. I'm going to connect that to, hello, Kat.
I love this guy that's here with you.
Great.
It's so cool. I love this guy.
He's so into it. I'm going to connect that to, the way that compartmentalization has become a staple for the deep state, both in terms of the ways that they compartmentalize us as individuals inside of ourselves, in the ways that they compartmentalize things like secret space programs, but then also how they're performing compartmentalization in things like the education system and academia, and how if we can find these analogies, these analogous through lines of their tactics, then we can develop strategic forms of thinking and behaving that will overcome a lot of these influences. So it should be very, very interesting. And I think the live stream is such a good deal. I really think
I know, right? It's unheard of.
It's bonkers. It's a 4-day conference for $44 is really actually
no, totally. I understand that. Are you going to be doing any healing work or some sort of work on site for those people that are going to be there? Because I know there are going to be some people that are on site, even though it's sold out at this stage. But is there any other sort of like workshops or anything else you're going to be offering? Because I know you're also doing a ceremony with Z as well, right? Can you tell us anything about that?
Yeah, so I'm going to be doing the opening ceremony at the conference with Z. We're really going to be focused on this ground crew activation concept, with the idea of community as like a node of service, as like a beacon, a non-local beacon on the planet. So that'll be a big focus of the opening ceremony, and really honoring the space, honoring the venue, honoring the creators of the conference. And then I'm also offering a workshop that is techniques for gazing into infinity. And this is based on some of the same ideas. So, if you imagine putting your finger above an ice cube, and you can keep your finger very far from that ice cube, and yet the ice cube will start to melt eventually, right? With no physical contact at all. So this idea of like very subtle contact actually can create very powerful connections. So what I'm going to be teaching people about is how to apply awareness on an infinitely subtle level, and that this is one of the ways we enter infinity. So let's say you learn to place your awareness within your heart space. Can you make the presence of your awareness lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter, and you're never pulling it away, you're never leaving, but to infinity, your awareness is becoming a more and more subtle presence. So this is a pretty unique teaching that I'm really, really excited to introduce to people, because it's going to be deeply connected to cultivating those levels of awareness that I think we need to bring forward. And then lastly, I'm going to be doing some kids yoga.
Nice.
And I'm going to do a little kids yoga journey on clearing heat and anger from the earth, and using celebration to heal humanity from war.
Oh, nice. Okay, interesting.
Because kids are they're ready for that kind of stuff. So it'll be a fun little journey for sure. And I'm also actually, performing a little wedding ceremony while I'm there as well. So
whoa, interesting. Awesome. Whoa, rad. Okay, cool. We will be hearing more about that later, I imagine. Whoa, I love that. Yeah, very, very cool. For those of you guys that are also here watching, thank you for hanging out. I will also be doing a workshop and a presentation. I think we're on alternating days, luckily, thank God. For those of you guys that are interested in the camp disclosure, I will be doing a presentation, I believe it's on Saturday, in which we are going to be talking about what's happening within the multidimensional energy body as we enter fourth density. For those of you guys that aren't aware, we are literally in the wavelength of human consciousness known as fourth density. And there are many changes, there are many activations, there are elements of yourself that are entirely different today than they were this time last year. And so we're going to be doing a presentation that I call a multidimensional ascension briefing. And then we're going to be doing a workshop on Sunday in which we're going to be going through a very, very particular and unique process of unlocking and enhancing our ability to read the frequency of truth. We're going to be working with specific chakras and energy centers in the body and helping people make a greater use of their gut instinct, their discernment, understanding what's real in this world. And what's true. And so for those of you guys that are watching, please take advantage of this incredible live stream thing. It's one of the first times I get to be a part of an event like this. So I'm deeply honored to be there. And I know Simon has an incredible offering, as is a bunch of other people. We have James Gilliland, Alex Bloom, we have Z Earth Star Healer, Stephen Cephalo, a whole group of people from this strange multi-dimensional community are coming together. So please join us and share this video if you'd like to win one of those live stream tickets. And so I think we're pretty much there. I think we're almost at the end, Simon. Is there anything else you want to share? Is there anything else you think people need to know right now at this stage of 2020 after all this madness we've been dealing with?
Don't let yourself become a tool for division.
Nice.
Don't allow it. Don't allow it.
Nice.
And yeah, that's it.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you for navigating my weird, bizarre, angular questions.
Anytime. I love things like that. I'm all about it.
I certainly appreciate it. And that said, I think if there's anything else that people need here to know from me is that at this stage of the game, you really are changing. Your consciousness is different. Your intuition is different. And each and every person that's watching this, no matter when you're attracted to this frequency, you were guided here. You were led here. And at this stage of 2020, we need true authenticity and a real, genuine version of each of us to emerge. And so if you're like me, you're part of the members of this soul group that's been called to come together. And just like Simon and many others, we're going to be gathering together at Camp Disclosure in the coming weeks. I hope some of you guys will check out the link in the description and also share this video if you want to win. In the meantime, you guys can reach me through my website, rememberyourmission.com. And I know you can find Simon through his television show, Worlds Within, on Edge of Wonder TV. Do you have a website or any other place people can get a hold of you, Simon?
Yeah, you can find me on Facebook, Simon Esler 1111. I'm also on Instagram. I'm on YouTube. And also you can find me on As You Wish Radio with James Gilliland on Saturday.
Nice.
So you guys can check that out. It should be great. And I look forward to connecting with everyone at Camp Disclosure. It's going to be awesome.
Cool. Thank you, man. We will see you there. And yeah, for everybody else, we will see you in the coming days. Who knows? We might do this again. You know, I've been asking a lot of people to do this show. We'll see who shows up. But yeah, we'll see you guys in the coming weeks. And if there's anything you guys do between now and then, take off that mask. Please, for God's sakes, take that mask off. I love you guys. We'll see you again in the future from a strange temporal bubble. We're out of here.
Bye, guys.